Welcome back to another educational video. It's been a while since I produced one of these, and honestly, I was kind of missing it. So today we're going to be talking about the evergreen skill of marketing and sales. And I realize that marketing and sales are two different things. However, for the sake of not producing a 1 hour YouTube video, which will not get as many views, I'm just going to combine the two into one category. And so in the world today, everything is changing around us, like at an extremely fast rate, especially as technology and AI keeps on getting better. So one way to survive in this digital renaissance is to focus on these evergreen skills that will let you build a solid foundation from which you can build off of. And so, for example, being able to market a digital product that you've produced, like a guide or a PDF, and then also selling yourself when it comes to networking is going to be an important evergreen skill that will have many other applications. And so make sure you like and subscribe for more educational videos as we explore more evergreen skills and their advanced applications. Let me ask you something. When it comes to marketing and sales, what do you think the first thing comes to mind? The sleazy car salesman selling a car to a first-time car owner coming right out of college at an APR of 30% and paying off car loans for the rest of their lives. It's a more common example than you might think. It's interesting because if you dive into the world of financial YouTubers, self-development courses, etc., especially when it comes to courses that try to teach you how to make a living online with the digital renaissance that we're in, a lot of these people will mention that society nowadays has a negative connotation when it comes to marketing and sales because they think it's sleazy and they think that you're a sellout if you try to sell people a course. While that may be true in some instances where people that have like a large audience, for example, are simply just grifters and are trying to make a quick buck, there are plenty of examples out there where people are actually selling courses that they've spent a significant amount of time on and also provide you a lot of value. You just have to find the right people when it comes to that. So let me tell you this. When it comes to selling yourself and marketing yourself in today's society, you do that way more than you might think. So picture this. You go to a networking event in your industry at a conference in Arizona, and you are the new person in the room. You barely have any experience, and you're meeting these other professionals that have like 30 plus years of experience. And you try to walk up to one and you strike up a conversation. You have an elevator pitch that typically, if you attend a networking event, you know what I'm talking about. You introduce yourself, say what you do, and what your aspirations are in 30 seconds or less, because attention is the new currency. And basically, in that conversation, you're selling yourself with what value you can provide to that person that has 30 plus years of experience. So you sell yourself and you market yourself, for example, also with the clothes that you wear at a particular conference or just in everyday society. You do that far more often than you might realize. And so the notion of marketing and sales being such a negative connotation and just being negative in general is completely untrue. You do that more often than you might think in regular life. Chances are, if you haven't been living under a rock, you know who this guy is. This guy is Alex Hormozi, and he is the entrepreneur of this generation, pretty much. Like, if you don't know who this guy is, search up Alex Hormozi on YouTube. He teaches and provides a lot of business value for free a lot of the time through his videos and interviews about how to run a business, how to get leads, etc., etc. So why am I bringing him up, besides the fact that he's an incredibly useful resource with those two books that he's holding, 100 Million Offers and then 100 Million Leads, which will teach you how to generate leads and then also how to make offers so good that your clients can't refuse. So why am I showing you this in the first place? And so I will use what I have learned from him by reading the first book on the left with $100 million offers as a creator. So as a content creator myself, I run another project called Embassy Life in DC, which I treat as like a pseudo business. It started out as a hobby, and now I'm trying to run it more as a business as well. And so when it comes to marketing and sales, it's been very interesting to try to figure out how exactly to make money from a project that focuses on international embassy and cultural events in DC. It's an incredible specific niche, but the market is there for that appetite. And so when it comes to marketing and sales, I have all these ideas about, like, for example, freebies that I'll produce to get leads for my newsletter, which is a whole dimension in itself. I have these product ideas that I want to create and market to my audience, and then also teach people how to build communities from their hobbies but with the evergreen skills that I'm teaching you. So a good example to follow and also to study from is Hormozi himself when it comes to both of these books. And we'll also go over a couple of marketing and sales principles that I've learned from him and other YouTube channels just to kind of spice it up. So there are countless tactics when it comes to marketing and sales. And full disclosure, I am not a sales specialist and I am definitely not an expert in this regard. I can only relate what I have learned so far with a couple of personal examples in the hopes that it inspires people who are a couple of steps behind me. And I also learn from others as well. So we'll start off with fear of missing out, FOMO. So this is a common acronym that you've probably heard around. Fear of missing out, like on a trip or buying a particular service, a product. So basically, what this means is like a company, for example, will release a product for X number of days before they take it down altogether. So it can be potentially seasonal, annual, weekly, whatever. And so the fear of missing out is enough to get people psychologically to get hooked on like, oh, I got to buy this product, otherwise it's gone forever. And so like that is the fear of missing out. And you'll see like a lot of marketing people kind of do that and implement that when it comes to like selling perfume. Like, oh, don't miss out on the new Dwar perfume bottle because it's only in stock for like this week before it returns a season later. So when it comes to discounted rates as the second example, that's kind of self-explanatory. You offer a 50% discount on a guide that you've published or a service that you provide in the hopes of a referral or just for a particular special occasion, like it's Valentine's Day. And then the third is freebies that are leads. And so I'm a big fan favorite of this third topic because I personally have done that. So for my Embassy Life in DC project, I created a guide that listed all the cultural centers in DC as a freebie. And a freebie doesn't necessarily have to be super complicated. Like, for example, in my case, it was literally like 20 pages of just like basic details that you could like scrounge around from the web, but it's useful and it provides value in the sense where people don't have to search like, oh my God, like what cultural center is this and what do they provide? All the information was listed. So kind of moving aside from that personal example, freebies are something that Hormozi covers in his first book, $100 million Offers, and explains that a freebie is a lead magnet, which is very interesting because if you can hook your audience in a way by providing a freebie and then you follow that up with, let's say, like a paid service, it's an incredibly useful way of adding a lot of resources to like a newsletter that you may have, an email list that you're trying to build. And it's one that I'm constantly experimenting with like myself. The real question is how many freebies should you have? And that's a very interesting question because I've heard different examples from other people. So I can't give you a straight answer. Like there's no set answer when it comes to that. Like there's no set, like you should have X number of freebies before you charge someone for your service. It honestly depends on like what problem you're trying to solve and how you're trying to solve it. But I've heard people say like, keep it simple, stupid. Like have one freebie and then all your other products are paid. Or the other side is produce as many freebies and offer so much overwhelming value that you can to the point where people are like, look, I'll pay you to do this for me. There's an example right there. Scarcity. So when you think about scarcity, you think about, for example, trying to find water in a desert and there's barely any water around you. So you got to find the water hole. Otherwise, metaphorically, you pass away in a desert. So using that same psychological thinking in a humorous manner, when it comes to scarcity, it's the same kind of psychological principle where, let's say like a company or like a service will produce like X number of copies of like a book, right? And then they'll release it just for like a single week. Or another great example is if you've ever followed like big YouTubers, like for example, Logan Paul. It's not a great example, I know, but like, for example, he does a magnificent job with his merch sales where he'll drop, let's say, like a specific collection for a couple of days and then it's all gone. And typically that yields incredible results for a person with like a large audience with a very engaged fan base. So that's scarcity as an example. The tripwire. So I only recently learned about the fifth tactic on this list. So it's kind of genius. And I hinted about this like previously. So let's say you start off with like a freebie, right? And then when someone signs up for your freebie, they give you they sign up with their email, which like lets you add it to an email list. And then you can use certain programs, like for example, I think it's called ConvertKit, where you can set up an automated process so that, let's say, like somebody signs up for your freebie in the fitness sector, like you're trying to help your clients lose weight. So you produce a 20-page guide about basic exercises to help your clients lose weight. And then through ConvertKit, you sign up for a service that lets you automatically follow up with someone that signed up for your freebie with a pop-up that says, wait, you just signed up for our freebie, which means you're better than 99% of the population and you will lose your weight, provided you sign up for this 50% discounted course that I'm offering to help you get results even faster. You see what it is? It's a tripwire, which means that like your client or customer signs up for the freebie, which activates like the trap card if you've ever like watched Yu-Gi-Oh as an example, and then like a paid service pop-up usually like shows up like afterwards if you kind of like set it up right. That's one specific example right there. Usually that yields varying results. It depends on like how expensive the paid product is, how large of an audience you have, how engaged they are, but it's one tactic to use in your marketing and sales arsenal. And then finally, the trial membership. So this is prevalent in newsletters. And this is an example that I've kind of been like wrestling with myself because I have a newsletter for my other creative project. But the problem is that if I switch it to a paid membership, I'm going to lose everybody. Like I can tell you that right now. And there's multiple reasons for that, including the fact that like at the same time, people can be cheap. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, I mean, rightfully so. It also depends on like the service that you provide with the solution to the problem that you're trying to market. I get that. But at the same time, it can be very frustrating because if you're trying to make a living off of like, a hobby that you want to turn into a business, it can just be frustrating. And that's where you try to add value as much as you can. But with a trial membership, for example, let's say you run a newsletter about grants and educational opportunities in the arts sector. You have a free version where you list 10 grants that you find on a weekly basis. But for your more paid audience members and for people that want a deeper dive, you can give them the full list that you find in a spreadsheet for $5 a month, but you start them off with a trial membership just to see if they like it. That's a common tactic that a lot of newsletter operators will use to get people to see like the full value if they want to keep it beyond a certain point. And so that's a trial membership myself, or that's a trial membership itself. I haven't used that specifically with my newsletter because it's just like I'm afraid that I'm gonna lose everybody if I end up doing that, and I don't want to like ruin all the progress that I've like built up over the past year. So it's been in my mind, and it's something that I may transition maybe a couple of years down the line if I maintain the projects. So where do we go from here? We've covered the sleazy car salesman example. We've covered Hormozi and his two books, which you may or may not find useful. We've covered the 6 tactics of marketing and sales from FOMO all the way to trial memberships for your newsletter. So where do we go from here? So I challenge you to find a problem, solve it, and then use the evergreen skill of marketing and sales to sell a solution that you've developed to a problem to your audience that you build over time. And so if you have no idea where to start, that's quite all right, because oftentimes enough, people try to look for other problems to solve, like let's say like in the world, and then the problem that they really need to solve is the problem that they are facing themselves. And so let me introduce you to the concept really quickly of the 3 markets. So for those of you that have ever taken like a basic human psychology class, you'll know what this is. Humanity and society face 3 buckets of problems that often overlap in a lot of different combinations. So the first is health. So for example, you're trying to lose weight because you want to be more fit. The second is wealth, where they also rhyme, just funny enough. But for example, you are poor and you are trying to get rich. And then relationships, where, for example, a common problem among men my age, 28 years old, is that they can't find a girlfriend, a spouse, whatever. And so these 3 buckets or categories often spill into each other in very interesting ways. So, using what you've learned today with sales and marketing, try to find a problem that is in your life first before externally, and then solve that problem, not outright, but at least like start to develop a solution around it. And then finally, use the sales and marketing principles along the way to build an audience, to build a solution, and then also to market that and sell that product to your audience that you build over time. I hope you've enjoyed this lecture. Please like and subscribe for more.